We've all dreamed at some point, but have you ever stopped to consider whether those dreams are more than just fleeting images? The ancients knew it. The prophets knew it. God uses dreams to speak to the chosen, just as he did with Joseph, Jacob, and others throughout history. He sends us messages when our eyes are closed and our spirit is most receptive. It's in those quiet moments that he calls us. If you're here listening to these words, it's very likely that you too are one of the chosen. Since I was young, I felt that my dreams held a deeper meaning. Sometimes they were so vivid that upon waking, I felt I had received a message I needed to decipher. Over time, I realized these weren't just reflections of my mind. They were a calling, a message directly from God. And today, I want to share with you the 7 dreams through which God might be speaking to you while you sleep. Have you ever woken up with a strange feeling, as if what you dreamed wasn't just a figment of your imagination, but something deeper, more real? Have you wondered if those dreams might contain a hidden message, something that transcends the ordinary? Let me tell you something. Dreams are not always what they seem. Since ancient times, dreams have been considered a doorway to the divine, a space where God can speak to us directly without distraction. And if you're hearing these words, it's no coincidence. You too may be among the chosen. In the Bible, we find countless examples of how God used dreams to communicate with his servants. Joseph dreamed of his future leadership even before his life changed forever. Jacob, while sleeping, saw a ladder that connected heaven and earth, and he knew instantly he was in the presence of the sacred. These men were chosen to receive a special message, one that would change not just their lives, but the lives of many. And just like them, there are people today who continue to receive divine callings. Don't think this only belongs to the past. God is still speaking. He's still sending signs. The question is, are you listening? Maybe you're wondering, why me? Why would God choose to speak to me through dreams? But it's precisely in the simplicity of dreams that their power lies. It's when we are asleep, when our bodies are at rest and our conscious mind quiets down, that our spirit becomes more open, more receptive to celestial vibrations. In that state of serenity, God calls us. He whispers. He shows us what we need to know. And if you felt that your dreams are different, more intense, it's because he's speaking to you. The ancients knew this well. Entire civilizations built their beliefs around the messages they received in dreams. For the prophets and sages of old, the dream world was sacred, a portal to dimensions we cannot fully understand while awake. But those with the faith to listen, those who pay attention to what happens while they sleep, are the ones destined to receive the clearest messages. They are the chosen ones. If you've ever had a dream that marked you, that made you wake with the feeling that something important had happened, don't ignore it. Dreams are not just fleeting images. They are the way the divine communicates with us. And if you've made it this far, maybe it's because you're ready to hear what God has to say. Because he doesn't speak to just anyone. If he's speaking to you, it's because he has a plan for you. But this is only the beginning. The dreams God sends us aren't always easy to understand. Sometimes we need to interpret the symbols, to decode what has been shown to us. The path to understanding these divine messages requires patience, faith, and above all, spiritual openness. Let's begin with one of the most common and powerful symbols: clear water. If you've ever dreamed of pure water, I invite you to stay because what follows could change your life. I remember that dream vividly as if it happened yesterday. I was standing before a river so clear I could see every stone at the bottom, every flash of light reflecting off the surface. There was no chaos, no noise, only peace. An indescribable calm wrapped around me, as if the river itself was inviting me to immerse in its serenity. At the time, I didn't fully understand its meaning, but over time, I came to see it was much more than a dream. It was a message from God. Clear water is a powerful symbol found in almost every culture and religion. For many, it represents life itself, the origin of all things. But in the dream world, it carries an even deeper meaning. When you dream of clear water, it's no coincidence. It's a symbol of purification. It's God telling you that your soul is being cleansed, washed free of what burdens you, of what holds you back. Believe me, if you've had this kind of dream, something big is about to happen in your life. It's a sign that you are being prepared to receive the divine. Throughout history, water has been seen as a transformative element. In the Bible, God used water to purify the earth during the flood. Baptism, involving water, symbolizes cleansing of the soul and readiness for a new life. Similarly, when we dream of clear water, it reflects that same process, our spirit being renewed and made ready for something greater. That dream marked the beginning of my personal journey toward healing and spiritual understanding. It was as if the water was telling me that everything I had carried for so long, all the worries, fears, and insecurities, was being washed away to make room for something new. Even though I didn't fully understand it at first, the peace that dream left in me was enough to know I was on the right path. Clear water reminds us that we are ready to receive. When our dreams show us this symbol, it's because our heart, mind, and soul are open, unblocked, and receptive. God is preparing us, and this is His way of saying the path is clear, something great is coming, and we are ready to embrace it. Do not underestimate the importance of this kind of dream. If you've dreamed of clear water, something profound is happening within you. God is cleansing you. He's preparing you for a greater purpose. And in that preparation lies true transformation. Once your soul is purified, once the clear water has done its work, you realize that fear and uncertainty no longer have a place in your life. You are at peace, and that peace allows you to hear more clearly the next messages God has for you. That's how I understood it. And I know I'm not alone. Many of the chosen have dreamed of clear water at some point in their lives. It is a sign, a divine whisper, that we are being guided, that we are not alone in this process. And just when you think you've understood it all, you realize this is just the beginning. Because after purification comes preparation for what truly matters. The next dream is as common as it is powerful. Flying. But this is not just any flight. It's an experience that symbolizes something far deeper. Spiritual elevation. One of the most impactful dreams I've ever had was when I found myself flying. I still remember the feeling of lifting off the ground, feeling as light as air, floating toward an unknown but promising destination. The wind on my face. There was no fear, no vertigo, only peace. A pure, complete peace. As if I were rising beyond the physical, toward something higher, something divine. Flying in dreams is one of the most powerful experiences we can have, and it's no coincidence that many of the chosen have experienced it. These dreams, far from being mere fantasy, carry deep spiritual meaning. When we dream of flying, our spirit is experiencing an ascent, a direct connection with the divine. It is a call to release our earthly limitations and rise toward our true purpose. In my dream, as I ascended, I felt my daily burdens, worries, fears, doubts fade away. I realized none of that mattered anymore. It was as if God was inviting me to let go, to leave behind everything keeping me grounded in the worries of the world. It was a reminder that there is more, something greater than life's daily struggles. And flying was the manifestation of that liberation. Curiously, when we're awake, we often cling to our burdens, our responsibilities, our problems. We believe everything depends on us, and if we don't carry that weight, things will fall apart. But in that dream, flying showed me the opposite. That true strength lies in letting go, in trusting that God has a bigger plan for us. One we may not always see, but it's there, waiting for us to rise toward it. Flying in dreams also symbolizes drawing closer to our divine purpose. It's God telling us we're on the right path, that we're rising spiritually. Every time we release our burdens, every time we trust His plan, we move closer, closer to our true purpose, closer to connection with our Creator. And it's not just the feeling of freedom, it's the direction we fly. In my dream, I wasn't flying aimlessly. I felt I was heading toward something, towards someone, and that someone was God. These types of dreams are constant reminders that we are not alone on our spiritual path. When God speaks through dreams, He often gives us signs that we are ready to ascend, to connect with Him more deeply. And flying is one of those signs. It shows us that although life circumstances may sometimes trap us, our souls always have the power to rise, to transcend physical limitations and connect with the divine. But flying also brings a challenge, the responsibility to maintain that connection. Because once you experience spiritual elevation, once you feel that freedom, it's hard to go back to life as it was. It's as if your soul has tasted something it always longed for, and now it can't settle for less. Flying in dreams reminds us we are called to live at a higher level, to be more connected to our purpose and to God. And while this dream was transformative, I soon learned that flying was only part of the journey, because after spiritual elevation comes the moment to see beyond the obvious, to understand what's truly happening in our lives and in the world. That's when I began to grasp the meaning of another revealing dream, fire. It represents faith, the trust that God is with us even in the darkest moments. The shadow, on the other hand, feeds on our doubts, on our moments of weakness. But once we understand this, once we realize that the shadow only has power over us if we allow it, that's when we begin to walk toward the light. This dream was a profound lesson for me. It taught me that on the spiritual path, not everything is peace and elevation. There are also moments of struggle, moments when we must face our own shadows, our own obstacles. But at the end of the day, God reminds us that there is always light, and it is that light that guides us through difficulties toward a greater spiritual connection. After that experience, I understood that facing the shadows was a crucial part of my spiritual journey. And even though the path may sometimes seem dark, there is always a light waiting for us at the end. But that wasn't the last meaningful dream I had. The next one was one of the most intense. The fire, a symbol that showed me the power of spiritual transformation. In another of my dreams, I found myself surrounded by a bright light so intense It seemed to fill every corner of my being. It wasn't an ordinary light, not like the one we know in this world. This light was pure, warm, enveloping, and I immediately knew I was in the presence of something much greater than myself. It was an indescribable sensation, a peace I had never experienced before, a feeling of absolute safety and protection. Deep in my soul, I knew I was before the manifestation of God. Dreaming of a bright light is a transformative experience. It's a moment in which doubts and fears vanish, and all that remains is the certainty that we are not alone on this journey. That light is a direct manifestation of divine guidance, a reminder that although obstacles and shadows may appear, there is always a higher presence that protects and guides us. In that moment, I understood that the light was not just a symbol, but a promise that no matter what happens, God will always be with us. The intensity of the light was so overwhelming that I completely surrendered to it. I felt it covering me entirely, penetrating every corner of my being, cleansing every trace of doubt or insecurity I might have had. It was as if, in that moment, everything I had lived, all the trials and difficulties, suddenly made sense. The light didn't just show me the way, it reminded me that although the spiritual journey can be hard, there is always guidance leading us to where we need to be. The most impactful part of this dream was the certainty that this light represented the presence of God. There was no need for words, no complex messages, just the pure, bright light communicating everything I needed to know. It was a reminder that God is always near, even when we can't see Him with our eyes or hear Him with our ears. He is present, guiding us through the darkest moments, leading us to a place of peace and purpose. This brilliant light also taught me that the presence of God does not always manifest in obvious ways. Sometimes it's subtle, a feeling, an intuition, a whisper in the soul. But in this dream, His presence was clear, evident, impossible to ignore. It was a reminder that although the spiritual path is filled with challenges, we are never alone. God is always there, guiding us, protecting us, showing us the way to truth and light. After waking from that dream, I felt a new strength, a new clarity. The light had reminded me that although life can be uncertain and obstacles can seem great, the presence of God always accompanies us. He never abandons us and is always ready to guide us back to the light when we feel lost. This experience also taught me that although we may face shadows and darkness in our spiritual journey, light always triumphs. No matter how deep our doubts or how great our fears, the light of God will always be there, illuminating our path and showing us the higher purpose of our life. From that dream forward, I realized that every step we take, every trial we face, brings us closer to that light, closer to divine connection. With the certainty that God's light was guiding me, I knew I was ready to face anything the spiritual path presented. I knew that even if there were obstacles, I would never be alone, and that there would always be light waiting at the end of the tunnel. But there was still one last revealing dream, one that would show me the true power of spiritual transformation. Fire, the symbol of purification and rebirth. Of all the dreams I've had, one of the most impactful was the one in which I found myself speaking with a celestial being. It wasn't an ordinary dream. Everything, from the atmosphere to the feeling in my chest, told me I was in the presence of something divine. This being didn't have a defined form like a common person, but its presence radiated a peace and wisdom I had never felt. It was as if all the knowledge of the universe flowed through it, and it was transmitting it to me in a way that I not only understood, but deeply felt in my soul. In that dream, the celestial being didn't speak in conventional words. It was more of a direct communication to the soul, a connection so deep it couldn't be expressed in human language. Each word it transmitted was full of wisdom, and with each revelation, I felt something within me unlock. It showed me answers to questions I didn't even know I had, truths that had always been dormant, but that I had not been able to see clearly. I remember one of the first things it said, "You have the answers within you, but you've been looking outside." In that moment, something clicked inside me. I had always been looking for external signs, for answers in the material world, when the key had always been within my direct connection to the divine. It was as if this celestial being was reminding me that my soul already knows the way. I just needed to trust it and let the voice of God guide me from within. This dream taught me the importance of paying attention to the messengers God sends us, whether in the form of angels, spiritual guides, or divine figures. Each one comes with a clear purpose to deliver important messages, to offer us wisdom that can change the course of our lives. And even though we may not be aware of their presence while awake, in dreams, when our minds are calm and our souls are open, these beings can communicate with us in a direct and transformative way. The most striking part of this encounter was the certainty that these messages were not only for me, but for everyone open to receiving them. The celestial being told me, "You are not alone in your search. Many others are receiving the same messages. You must share what you learn because it is part of your mission." That moment changed me completely because I understood that my spiritual path was not just personal, it was also a responsibility toward others. What I learned through these dreams was not meant to be kept to myself, but shared with those who are also searching for answers and divine connection. I also learned that these beings don't appear in our dreams by accident. God sends them when we are ready, when our souls have reached a level of openness sufficient to receive the wisdom they offer. And those messages do not always come in obvious ways. Sometimes the revelations come wrapped in symbols, in images that may seem confusing at first, but which, over time, take on deep meaning. After waking from that dream, I felt renewed, as if something inside me had changed forever. The communication with that celestial being had shown me that we are not alone on this spiritual journey. There are guides, angels, and divine beings that accompany us, even when we can't see or feel them. They are there, whispering to our souls, showing us the way when we feel lost. This dream taught me the importance of being attentive to the signs God sends us, not only in our dreams, but also in our daily lives. Sometimes the answers we seek don't come in the form we expect, but if we are open and receptive, we can recognize divine messages when they arrive. Because those messages, when they come from God or His messengers, have the power to completely transform our lives. And even though that experience was powerful, there was still one last dream to live, one in which the symbol of fire would appear to show me the power of transformation and spiritual rebirth. The last dream I experienced was one of the deepest and most impactful of all. I was standing in front of a long bridge. At first, I couldn't clearly see what was on the other side, but I knew something important was waiting for me. The air around me was dense, but not uncomfortable. There was a sense of imminent change. As I took the first step, I felt as if every part of my being was being tested. Deep in my heart, I knew that bridge symbolized a spiritual transition, one that was preparing me for something greater. As I moved forward, with each step, the path became clearer. At first, there was fear and doubt. Was I truly ready for what was coming next? But the feeling of peace and security began to fill me as I moved forward, as if every step I took was a confirmation that this was my path. God was showing me that I was leaving behind a part of myself, an old, worn-out part, and stepping into a new stage of life, a new chapter full of purpose and meaning. At the end of the bridge, I reached a temple, a sacred place. I saw myself entering what looked like a church, though it wasn't a typical church. The atmosphere was serene, filled with a divine energy that was almost tangible. Everything was calm, and for the first time in a long time, I felt complete peace. This temple was not only a physical place, but also a symbol of my soul reaching a state of harmony, of union with the divine. As I entered, I felt I was in the presence of something sacred, as if God Himself was there, waiting for me. In that moment, everything became clear. God had guided me through all those dreams, showing me what I needed to see to understand that this spiritual transition was inevitable and necessary. The bridge I had crossed was a symbol of transformation, of leaving behind what no longer served me and moving toward a new state of consciousness. The temple, on the other hand, represented the sacred encounter, the union with my divine purpose. Dreaming of bridges and temples is one of the clearest signs that you are in a spiritual transition. It's God showing you that you are moving forward, that you are being guided toward a sacred encounter with your true purpose. These dreams are reminders that the path is not always easy, but if you trust in it, it will take you exactly where you need to be. The temple in my dream was not just a place of worship, it was a space within me that had been purified and prepared to receive the divine presence. It was the reflection of my soul, ready to accept the mission God had for me. As I stood there in silence, I knew my life was about to change in a profound and meaningful way. I looked around and saw that I was not alone. I felt the presence of others who had also gone through their own spiritual journey, their own trials and challenges. We were all there, in that temple, waiting for the next step. But there was no rush, no anxiety, only peace. God had guided us to that moment, and we knew we were ready for what would come next. Upon waking from that dream, I realized that the time had come to embrace my true purpose. I had been chosen not just to receive these divine messages, but to share them, to guide others on their own spiritual paths. The bridges and temples in my dreams had shown me I was not alone in this journey. God had accompanied me every step of the way, showing me the path to a sacred encounter with my destiny. If you have ever dreamed of crossing a bridge or being in a temple, it is because God is guiding you too, showing you that you are in transition, that you are moving toward your true purpose. And even if the path sometimes seems uncertain, remember that you are always being guided. You are always being led to a sacred encounter with the divine. All you need to do is trust, take the first step, and let God lead you to where you truly belong. At the end of this journey through dreams and divine signs, it becomes clear that each of us is part of a greater plan. These dreams are not just symbols. They are direct messages from God, urging us to listen, to pay attention, and to open our hearts to what is coming. Often, in the routines of daily life, we forget the importance of our dreams, of the night visions that can guide us on our spiritual path. But today, as we explore these experiences, we have learned that every dream has a purpose. Every image and every emotion is filled with meaning. Connection with the divine through dreams is not something reserved for a few. It is a gift accessible to all. If you are here listening to these words, it is because you are being called to recognize and interpret those messages. It doesn't matter whether you have dreamed of clear water, which symbolizes purification, or of bright lights, which represent the presence of God. What matters is that you take those dreams as signs of love and guidance in your life. The spiritual transition we all experience is a journey full of challenges, but also of moments of revelation and joy. When you face shadows, remember that you are in the process of confronting your fears and transforming them into light. As you soar toward the divine, allow that freedom to inspire you to keep exploring your connection with God. Ultimately, every bridge we cross and every temple we visit in our dreams are reminders that we are always moving toward a higher purpose. Life is a continuous path of learning, and our dreams are the lights that guide us in the darkness, leading us to a place of greater understanding and peace. So, as you lie down tonight, remember that the heavens are speaking to you. Open your heart and your mind to what God wants to reveal to you. Allow yourself to dream, and above all, allow those dreams to become the compass that guides you toward your true destiny. You are one of the chosen ones, and every dream you experience is an open door to a sacred encounter. Trust the process, and remember that at the end of the path, you will always be in the presence of the divine, ready to embrace your mission and share it with the world. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey through dreams and divine connection. I hope you have found inspiration in these messages and feel encouraged to explore your own nightly experiences. Remember that every dream is an opportunity to grow and discover your purpose. If this content resonated with you, don't hesitate to share it with others who may benefit. And if you have any dream experiences you wish to share or questions about how to interpret your dreams, leave me a comment below. I am here to support you on your spiritual path.